To understand the anatomy and the location of the cerebral ventricles, we first need to understand or look at the development, the embryology of the central nervous system. The central nervous system develops from a flat sheet of ectoderm, the neural plate. This plate starts to fold, like in the second picture, and then it forms, closing together, the neural tube. And this is basically the start of the spinal cord. So here you can see it in three-dimensional depiction, and you can see how, as it closes, the tube is closing. It is a longitudinal tube, resulting in something like that in the middle, and that is present even in the adult, called a spinal or central canal. This is not really fully open in an adult. It is just a vestigial remnant of the embryology of the central nervous system. As we go further rostral in the neural tube, it starts to develop a little bit more advanced, into a more advanced state. As we remember now from the anatomy, the spinal cord is connected rostrally to the medulla, first the closed medulla, then that medulla is opening up and becomes an open medulla, and then next rostrally is the pons, and dorsally over the pons spreads the cerebellum, and finally the most rostral part of the brainstem is the midbrain. In this picture you can see the four little circle representing the corpora quadrigemina, or in other words, the superior and the inferior colliculi. Just rostral to that, you can see the two olive-shaped thalamus, and then surrounding this whole system is the actual brain, the neocortex. If we look at the brainstem in a lateral view, in a sagittal view, we can also closed medulla, the open medulla, the pons, and the midbrain with the tectum above it, and dorsal to the pons you can see the cerebellum. So let's continue to look at the central canal and how that changes with the development of the brain and the central nervous system. So here is represented the central canal as it comes up from below through the spinal cord. This remains the same, largely the same, all the way in the closed medulla. It becomes this whole open area, which we described as the rhomboid fossa, allows a pooling of the content covered by the cerebellum above. It becomes the fourth ventricle. But again, we have a narrowing here, and that narrowing happens through the midbrain, and here we call the cerebral aqueduct. After that, it can increase in size again and running between the two thalami, and that will become the third ventricle. And then it starts to move into two different parts, two separate hemispheres in the now newly developing brain. And as the brain develops and grows dorsally, laterally, and even posteriorly, the size of the ventricle will become larger as well, and its shape follows the growth of the brain. So while these were the first growth, as the brain is expanding, so does the two ventricles in the two hemispheres. So from the very simple tubular structure, what we found in the spinal cord, central canal, as it reaches the brainstem, it will form the fourth ventricle. Again, between the pons, the open medulla, and the cerebellum behind. Here is the cerebellum. Then it has this narrow cerebral aqueduct, going through the midbrain, and then we have this strangely shaped ventricle which lies between the two thalami as well as the hypothalamus. So it's between the two hemispheres of the diencephalon, and this will be called the third ventricle. And then, as I said before, the ventricular system now divides into the two hemispheres instead of staying in the midline, and grows together with the brain, so close to a C shape in both hemispheres, and these are called the lateral ventricles. So this is the only one which is paired.